Hi, this is Captain Jill McTavish of HMS Valkyrie. As some of you are aware, we are a ship that does a lot of gaming, and I know there's a lot of questions about marksmanship games, about how difficult they are. So as a ship, we decided that we are going to do these series of videos explaining the basic rules of how to play both marksmanship games and other games that we really enjoy. This way, you and your crew can go and start playing these games, and once you're comfortable with the basic rules, you can go through the rule book and add additional rules. The first game that we're going to be explaining in these series is Wings of War. This has recently been rebranded as Wings of Glory, so the basic rules I teach you for the World War I set should transfer over to Wings of Glory as well, since these sets are entirely compatible. Let's show you what you need to do to get started. Here's what you need in order to play the game. You have damage decks, you have planes, you have playmats, you have a damage ruler, you have maneuver decks, and you have these tokens, which you may hear referred to as chits. Easiest way to set up is have everyone choose a plane, and all planes have different stats because each plane has different capabilities. So the first letter, the blue letter, that is a maneuver deck. Again, each maneuver deck is different. Some have more cards, some have less, some are really fast, some are slow, some are maneuverable, some are not. But for the beginner game, you're going to want to take the ones with the red marks on it and take them out. You're not going to use them for the beginning rules. And it's also easiest if you take the playmat and match the stats on the card and the playmat. That makes it much easier for beginners to remember what their plane is capable of. The second letter is the damage deck. So notice that 3 of the 4 have the A damage deck. 1 has the B damage deck. So they are different. Different damage decks have different proportions, but the A and the B are usually what you're going to play unless you have some special things going on like surface-to-air missiles and that sort of thing. So I'll just show you the A damage deck since that's going to be the most common deck. Damage decks generally go from 2 to 5. Excuse me, from 0 to 5. More on the light end than the heavy end, so if you get a 5, you know they got a really good shot. You'll also see a whole bunch of symbols in the bottom of these cards. For now, ignore all the symbols except for these 2. When you draw a damage card, you must keep the number secret. You do not show it to anyone. The only 2 cards you show are these cards. If you draw this card, your opponent got a very lucky shot. It's an instant kill. You are done. You are out of the game. This card, on the other hand, you cover up the number and you show the crosshairs. This means your opponent is jammed, and I will cover what jammed means later. But ignore all the other symbols and keep all the other cards secret. You don't want your opponents to know how much damage you have before you blow up. So you have your plan on your board. You have your damage ruler. You have your maneuver deck set up. So you must be wondering how you shoot. You will see this arc. This is your arc of fire. This is where you can arc. If the plane you're trying to shoot at is outside of there, you're not going to hit it. If it hits anywhere on the card with the basic rules, that counts as a hit. So you go from the little red dot in the middle. This is a hit. If this were to happen, they take 1 A damage because you fire A. If it's here, that's B. They still take A because that is what you are shooting. However, if they are really close and you can hit them before that halfway marker on the damage ruler, they draw 2 cards. So if they were to draw that jam token, they take these 3 chits, put them on your playmat. This shows for the next 3 maneuvers, you cannot fire. Your guns are jammed. So after every maneuver card you reveal, you take 1 off until all 3 are gone. But what are maneuver cards? Well, I'm glad you asked. As I mentioned earlier, all planes have a maneuver deck, but each maneuver deck is different. You plan 3 cards. Make sure you place them in order, because if you put them in the wrong order, you still have to do them. You just simply place them face down, and everyone reveals their maneuver at the same time and performs a maneuver at the same time. So in this case, take this, you line it up so the end of the card matches the end of the card. Then you line up the arrows. That is your new position. Try to be as accurate as possible when you are placing your plane, because small angles matter, especially at the end of the game. So do try to be as accurate as possible and not to nick planes. The third and final maneuver, when you get to it, is very important, because there's certain maneuvers that you have to plan in order. So since you did a straight, for your last maneuver, you put a straight there, and that way everyone knows that you can do an Immelman turn the next round. Immelman turns, which are commonly referred to as a crazy Ivan among my crew, are basically how you turn around. In order to do this maneuver, you need to have a straight forward before and after it. And you'll know it's a straight by the arrow by the letter. Unlike this other card, which also has an arrow going straight and has a diamond, so that is not a straight card. So you just have to imagine that you're building up speed, you're turning, and then you're trying to get the speed back so you don't stall out. The only other thing that you have to remember when you're planning your maneuvers is you cannot do 2 diamond cards in a row. These are steep maneuvers. If you do that, you will stall. And then that's it. You're done. Beginner rules, if someone makes a mistake, let them fix it. But after a while, mistakes, they'll take 1 damage card. But for tournament, that would be an instant kill. If you make an illegal maneuver, you are done. Those are the basics. And let's show you a couple of rounds before we set you on your own. Alright, so we have a basic setup with the 4 planes I was showing you earlier. Commander Hackett is going to be flying 2 planes, both for Germany. Normally for a first game we have a free-for-all dogfight, but it was kind of fun to have kind of a guys against girls, because Lieutenant Howard is the other person who is going to be joining us tonight. We're going to have 2 example playmats, so you can kind of see how things work. So there are 2, you just can't see them. So we're just going to get started and show you a couple example rounds and kind of further explain some rules as we go. So the first thing you do is take your plane and you put it on the board. Now, one thing I did not mention, that if you fly off of the table or any place that is designated as out of bounds, you are out of the game. You essentially have flown back to base. You're essentially out of the area of engagement. So don't fly off the board. For beginners, we kind of let them, put their plane at the edge of the table at the beginning of the next maneuver phase. But in tournament, you're done. Alright, so first, everyone choose their set of maneuvers to get the game started. Alright, is everyone set?
Yep.
Alright, so everyone maneuvers at the same time. So I'm going to take the first maneuver card. Now at this point, it really is too early to measure, but really, no one is going to be hitting anyone in the first round. Next maneuver. So you'll notice that I played a steep maneuver the first card with the diamond, so I don't want to play another diamond card or else I will stall. You'll also notice we're putting the used maneuvers face up on the card so we can see that everyone has done their second maneuver. And finally, the third maneuver. Alright, damage is going to be done this last maneuver here. You'll also notice that even though this wasn't a straight diamond card, this is a diamond with a left arrow. So it's still a steep maneuver, so we need to put the chit with the diamond on here, indicating that my last maneuver was a steep maneuver, on here so myself and everyone else knows that I can't do another steep maneuver for my first move next turn. So you want to keep in mind that these are actually 2 different tokens. This is you're going straight and this is the Immelman, so you're turning around. Alright, and we are close enough to do some damage. So everyone, see I can't hit anybody. Jules does A damage, so she takes, since she's within the long distance, she gives him 1 card. And he places it on the corresponding playmat. So since she shot his B plane, it goes on his B. He places it face down. On the part that does not have a +1 with advanced rules, some damage will give an extra damage. So you want to make sure you place it where you only get the designated amount of damage. Okay, that is the first set of maneuvers. So everyone take your maneuvers you did use, put it back on your deck, and plan the next phase. You really don't want to play any less than 4 planes at once, because or else you're flying around in circles. Although at the end of the game, it's inevitable that there's only 2 planes. One rule you need to keep in mind is if you are in range to do 2 damage to 2 different planes, you have to choose one. You cannot split 1 and 1 for the planes. Alright, it looks everyone is ready with their next set of maneuvers. Let's take your first maneuver. Because we're not playing with the altitude rules, when cards overlap, they're flying over and under them. So these 2 planes here, they can't shoot at each other because they're at different heights. This, however, on the other hand, I'm taking a lot of damage because we are not overlapping. So I don't even need to measure that. I'm just going to take 2 damage. There's some symbols on here. We're not playing with those symbols this time, so I don't have to worry about it. And since we're done with that first maneuver, we can take our reminders off. And let's go ahead and the next one on the board. Oftentimes it'll be easier for one person just to maneuver the plane for the other player. So you'll notice to match up the arrows, I had to flip the plane around. That is how you turn around using the Immelman turn or the Crazy Evan. You'll notice in order for him to play that, he had to play straight before, and that last card has to be a straight afterwards, or else it's going to be an illegal maneuver. Alright, so now we figure out damage. C, it takes 2 from me, and since I have the B damage deck, he gets cards from the B deck. But I only take 1, even though if I were to go here, it would be past the halfway point. With the Arc of Fire, it is still only 1. So I take 1, and I'm going to show the commander this card because we are playing with this symbol. His plane is now jammed. For the next 3 maneuver cards, he cannot fire. So he places the 3 jam tokens on his card, and after each maneuver, he will take 1 off.
And I finished that maneuver, so I will take 1 of the jam tokens off.
You will notice that I was able to play an Immelman because I had a straight at the end of my last turn. And as long as it's before the previous card, you play the straight, it works. I'll take that damage now. That's 2, and that's 1. Just hand over 3. And I drew the instant card of death, so no matter what my point total was, my plane is done. And we keep them face down on the playmat when you do die, because face up, it kind of looks like the shadow face down. But on the other hand, at the same time, you jammed. But at this point, you basically get the gist of the game. You just keep going until someone gets enough points where they explode and only one team is remaining. There are plenty of different scenarios that you can play. There are scenarios where you guard, for example, dirigibles. And if you really get into the game, there are actually miniatures that you can buy, including blimps. Most people prefer to play with the cards until they get to altitude rules, With the miniatures, it's a lot easier to tell by sight with altitude. But that is a game of Wings of War. Have fun, and remember to keep calm, roll pods.